Once you find yourself in conflict with a narcissist, it's a virtual guarantee they're going to start playing head games with you. That's why I put together a new course. It's very extensive called Anger Games. I'm going to teach you how to manage anger and conflict with a narcissist. There's a link below that's going to show you how to register, and I hope that you find it to be very insightful. Hi, Team Healthy. Welcome to another episode of Unbound. This is where I field questions from you, and it allows me to get a chance to know where you're coming from and respond in a very specific way. And today we have a couple of really interesting questions about a narcissist's go-to emotion. And if any of you have ever spent much time around narcissists, you know that their go-to emotion is anger. Now, one of the jobs that I had as a therapist is I would hear these angry stories that would come into my office, and then part of what we would do is we would go underneath the surface and figure out what kinds of things are pushing it along, and that's where you find out there's hidden shame and fear and arrogance and hubris and all the rest. But on the surface, what you see is the anger, and I want to talk about that here today. Now, before I get into the questions that have been sent in, I want to set it up by asking you a question, and that is, do you have a right to be angry? Now, of course, the answer can at times be, well, yes, there are times when it's an appropriate thing to do. Somebody has offended you, you've been insulted, or there's a lack of cooperation or a lack of understanding, and that emotion wells up on the inside. And there are times when it's appropriate to say, I'm feeling hurt or frustrated or ticked off or angry, and let's see if we can do something about it. But I want to take it a step further. Let's not just ask, do you have a right to be angry? But let's ask the question, do you have a responsibility to be angry? Okay, that puts a whole different light on it, doesn't it? Well, when we talk about that word responsibility, immediately there's a sense of teamwork that implies. Narcissists, they're all about their rights. They're very self-absorbed and they're very entitled. So it's like, oh yeah, I've got my rights. But they don't take it to that next level and think, but am I doing this in a responsible kind of way, which implies conscientiousness. Now, all of that said, let's go into our illustrations here and see if we can make some sense of what you're sending in. The first person writes in and says, what is so baffling is when they lay into you. I'm thinking, if we're so insufficient, why do they stick around? Good question. I've recently experienced a craziness situation where my sister suddenly turned on me and she had her flying monkey by her side giving support. She's always whining and letting people run all over her, and I've encouraged her to be assertive, but not like this. I was infuriated and lost my cool, and then days later she called me as though nothing had happened. Okay, a classic situation here. You've got two sisters, and one of them apparently tends to hold in the anger. It says she's whining, which probably implies she's inclined towards easy frustration, probably some passive aggressiveness there. But then she lets people run all over her, which also implies she does quite a bit of suppressing of her emotion. So you've got this sister that this writer is referring to as the narcissistic sister. And the narcissistic sister gets really angry and blows at her. And she had a flying monkey by her side, in other words, an enabler, some sort of a cohort. And apparently that empowered her. And she lays into this sister, and the sister lays it right back at her. This is one of the most common things that we see here. Now, I want you to notice that there's some culpability on both sides to look at. First, this narcissistic sister who holds it in, does some griping and all, but tends to be a doormat for other individuals, finally blows. And you can see that she doesn't have a good handle on her anger. Anger at its best is your emotion of self-preservation. There's something that you want to say or emphasize that says, things are not going right. You're not treating me with a sense of worth, or I don't feel like you're respecting my needs or my convictions. Fair enough. But then when it says Let's see. She suddenly turned on me. And then I've encouraged her to be assertive, but not like this. Apparently it got very ugly. Okay, let's pick up on that word assertive. When we talk about assertive anger, we're talking about standing up in preservation of your worth and your needs and your convictions. That's fair game. But then assertiveness implies a sense of responsibility. It's like, well, I need to stand up for myself, but I know you do too. And let's make sure that we each have a chance to put out our thoughts and our needs to one another and have a fair exchange. She didn't do that, and then the sister who's writing in didn't handle it very well, and it says, I was infuriated and lost my cool. And we have what we refer to as reactive abuse. You're abusing me, and I just shove that abusive behavior back at you, and I'm reacting, and it gets ugly both ways. One of the biggest challenges that you're going to have, and this is going to happen over and over, knowing that the narcissist's go-to emotion is going to be their anger, is when they become angry, it's going to be very difficult, but nonetheless necessary for you to maintain your cool. Now, I'm not going to throw a whole lot of shade on you if you say, well, Doc, that's easier said than done, because I understand that. And yet, at the same time, it's like, I need to know where that person's coming from. They're coming from a place of entitlement and selfishness with a whole lot of emotional ineptitude thrown in. And I need to have a game plan for who I'm going to be. And that's why it's so important for you to understand the emotion of anger as you're dealing with a narcissist. Now, let's take a look at the second question here. This person goes on, and it kind of elucidates what we're talking about even more so. This person says, when my narcissist gets angry, it's all about control. Bingo. I never did the counter control thing, and that seemed to have really frustrated him even more. He interprets my refusal to be controlled as controlling him. Well, guess what? That's called projection. My problem was with tending to explain myself, despite knowing that he was just going to try to goad me into doing so, having already decided to make me look wrong no matter what. And boy, does that hit the nail on the head. All about control. When narcissists go to their anger place, it's their way of implying, I have to dominate and overpower you. And again, we go back to the question, well, do you have a right to be angry? And the answer is, yeah, there are times when you do, but do you have a responsibility? Can you do it in a healthy way? And responsible individuals don't go into anger with the idea that says, I want you to feel like dirt. I want you to feel really lousy about who you are. You'll notice that when that controlling narcissist comes through, and then when they're frustrated because you're not going to comply with them, they say, "Well, you're the controlling one." So I know I'm just trying to hold my ground here. I'm just trying to be true to me. They're going to come at you with all sorts of tricks. Are you going to be responsible in the way that you respond, even if the narcissist cannot? And in your responsibility, I'm hoping that you can realize I truly don't have a need to counter control. In healthy anger, you want to say what needs to be said, and then guess what? You pause and you say, now I'd like to hear what you have to say. That's healthy, responsible anger. Now, how many narcissistic individuals do you know that do something like that? Well, I've got something on my mind, but I know you do too. Let's make sure that we have a fair hearing. Let's take that thing about listening, though, and take it one step further. Not only does the angry individual want to slow down long enough to listen to the other person, but we need to have a very strong sense of comprehension of one another. That's taking listening to that full-blown empathetic kind of style. It's like, I don't want to just tell you, and then you tell me, and then we hear each other. I want us to have a sense of comprehension, a sense of mutuality. Both of us are feeling frustrated, and we want to get to a better place. What does that mean, and how can we do so in such a way where I scratch your back and you scratch my back, and then we're not going to just automatically assume that if you disagree with me, you're wrong. It may be that we could each learn something. That would be a healthy way to approach anger if you could do it in that responsible sense of mutuality. Now, real quickly, I want to read one more, and then we're going to see if we can wrap it up with this one. This person says, my natural bent is to make other people feel comfortable. I like helping and knowing that others feel welcome in my home, in my sales job, and with my social activities. What bothers me the most is when people interpret my kindness as emotional weakness. How can a natural empath convey that they also want to be taken seriously? Okay, now this gets right to the crux of the matter. In fact, when I was reading this for the first time, and I was reading those first sentences, I thought, okay, this question is coming from an empath, and sure enough, they identify. I try to be empathetic, but then others interpret me as not being serious, and they shouldn't take me fully for like somebody else that yells. I'm hoping that you can see, empathy and healthy anger go hand in hand. You can't have healthy anger unless there's that comprehensive, that willingness to comprehension, and that willingness to say, I want to know you just as I want you to know me. And here's the rub. As the empath, as the person who's trying to be helpful, you want to go ahead and say, well, even if that person in front of me is looking at their anger in a very self-absorbed kind of way, I don't match pitch with that. I've got a good handle on who I am, and if that person comes towards me with all sorts of impropriety, if they misinterpret me, if they have nefarious schemes, that's on them. What I am going to do is I'll do my best to try to understand in fairness where they're coming from, but also I'm going to hold my ground when necessary. That's called boundaries, and it's called, and then you set stipulations and consequences. And I'm going to maintain my anger, my self-preservation in such a way where I'm trying the best I can to be responsible. And if that person can't join me in that effort, then it tells me we don't have a very strong relationship, and it's not something that I need to look to as being my go-to for my sense of well-being. So I hope that this discussion gives you some idea of how you can differentiate yourself in your use of anger. I've done a whole lot of anger workshops, and I've done writing and courses on this, and this is something that I feel passionate about. The healthy individual wants to manage conflict in a clean, responsible way. The unhealthy narcissistic person says, it's all about me. And I think we can do better than that. Now, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. Thank you for allowing me to be on your journey with you. I truly consider it a privilege. Now, you know that I've been sponsored for years by the folks at BetterHelp.com. If the need is there, we have a link below. It's an online therapy resource. We've vetted them, and I've had plenty of good feedback from folks who have sought the online therapy. So as the need is there, and you know that you need somebody to help you sift it out, go through the link that you have and invest in yourself in that way. Now, I mentioned I have courses. One of them is called the Anger Trap. The Anger Trap. That's one of my books. Anger Games. And each of my course has at least 25 teaching videos with handouts and guided questions, along with it's just a full service kind of thing, so you can kind of walk through and do it in your own kind of pace. So we have Anger Games. We have This Is Me, about establishing those boundaries. In addition, we have my course is called This Is Me, about managing yourself despite the controllers in your life. And then also Ready, Set, Connect, how to have healthy connections. And then we also have my articles, webinars, and my books. So we have a lot of resources there for you. The narcissist is not going to approach you with the idea that says, I need to handle my anger responsibly. All they can think of is, I've got my rights, and that's where it ends. I'm hoping you can say, yeah, I have my rights too, but I want to manage it in a responsible, conscientious way. And that's where you distinguish yourself. And if the narcissist can't join you, then you continue down your healthy path nonetheless, and stand firmly on who you are. You don't have to apologize for what you are. And if that other person doesn't understand you, that's on them. It's not on you. I want you to be a person of steadiness and ultimately a person of peace.